In this video we will connect body with wheel arches, so we will fill this gap right here, and we will begin by selecting this curve and then copy and paste it and move it closer to the center, so move it behind the body, and then you can use a skin tool to connect these two curves. And just make sure that when you're building this surface that you have multiple surfaces selected on the surface structure, otherwise you'll get a surface with 3 spans. So as you can see now I have 3 Bezier surfaces. Just delete this. So now we can select this curve, and what we need to do, we need to move the pivot of this curve so that we can scale it properly. And to do that I'm going to create a helper curve. I'll connect the ends of wheel arch curve and move the pivot into the center of this helper curve. So snap it with Ctrl Alt into the middle, and then you can delete that curve if you wish. So we can now scale this with left mouse button in perspective, and I want to get as close to this edge as possible. And there is an easy way to do this. If you will start dragging it in perspective window and you'll be looking at side window, it will be a lot easier to see what you're doing, and this way you can get closer to an edge. So I'll leave it right there. Okay, now we can intersect these. Oh, just before, we need to scale it, and you can either use non-proportional scale, or I'm using scale here with middle mouse button, and I'm doing that in side view. And now you can see how the end of this wheel arch is not really looking good. It's a lot worse than it is right here in my design. In my design it's thinning out towards the end, so right here it's long and then it's shorter and shorter. So that is what we're going to do right here. So try to play around with that scaling until you build something that you like, and then we will switch the points on and we'll move this middle point of the side panel, and that way you see how it affects the intersection. I'll just move this one a bit lower, and I'll update the tangency on the blend like that. You can really see that front surface needs to be fixed, that front surface of a wheel arch. So again, I'm trying to move the same point with NUV. You can also use the middle point of this surface, you don't just have to use the edge. But another way well, actually just before that I'll show you that we broke our history with the headlight before, so this surface as well as the shoulder above that will have to be rebuilt again once you finish off this process, because we don't have a history there anymore. We broke it because of the trimming. Okay, so now what I'll do, I'll use extend with merge on, and I'll start dragging the corner of side panel, and you can move it forward or backwards, and you see how it changes the shape of the wheel arch again. But one of the things that you need to keep in mind is that if you move it too forward, you see that now I'm looking from the bottom and you see that there is a gap, so there is a limit as to how far you can move this edge. So you don't want to go too far, so right now I'll have to move it back a bit. And then lastly, I'm going to try to improve the shape by selecting CV of the curve that we copied and pasted at the beginning of this video, and we'll try moving it in X or Y and see what works. You can also try NUV. You can try selecting one or more CVs until you achieve the shape that you like. So something like this is perhaps looking a bit better. And then I'll select this point and try to move that as well. So just play around with this in your own time until you achieve something that you like. Okay, now we're going to intersect these wheel arch surfaces with side panel and the blend, and we'll start trimming. But actually I can't trim the surface because I haven't built the surfaces at the bottom just yet, but at least you can trim the top surface. And so that is what we'll do now. We'll fill this gap right here. So we will start by building a simple curve. We'll snap it to this point, and then in F9 you want to give it something like 45 degrees angle. So there we go, that will be used as generation curve, and this time I'll use two generation curves, so I'm going to build another one here, and in F5 I'm extending it in X, and you want to give it similar length as the previous curve. Okay, now you can build your surface with two generation curves and one rail. And what you can see here is that it built the surface across the whole length of the surface below. So you want to check that you have curve segments selected, and you want to hold Ctrl Alt and move that point to generation curve. And then if you change it to parallel or natural, if you change the sweep mode, it just forgets to update, so you need to grab that point again and snap it back where it was. And so there we have our surface that fills that gap, and we can now intersect it with surrounding surfaces. And when you've done that, you can trim it. So we'll trim this one, and this one, and the blend. And we can have a look what it looks like from the inside as well. You see it's all closed. We can even put locators on. So there it is, you can see that we have positional continuity. Right, next we will build a surface to fill this gap right here. So we will build a light catcher from one surface to another. We'll use skin tool, and for flow control we'll just use default on each end. And then I'm not even going to add crown to this surface, I'm just going to keep it as it is. And we'll just intersect it here with wheel arch. So select this, and then trim, then trim your wheel arch, and finally you can trim the side panel. And so that is basically how you build the front end of this car. So I'll just quickly show you the inside of it, and you see it's all nice trimmed and closed.